Hello, Mike. Mike Zawadzki, the producer, the martial artist, and I have to say, I love the movies on Netflix.
Ah,
Um, I really, really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, the lesson plan and Bartkowiak. Really, really good. But let's
well,
start from the beginning. How did you get involved in martial arts? What's your background in martial arts, and so on and so on?
I started out. My father thought I had a bit too much energy as a youngster. I think I was nine. Yeah, I was 9 years old. And we used to we liked to watch martial arts movies. It was the Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris craze at that time. And he said, "This kid's got too much energy. We got to do something." And my father, when he went to the Polytechnic, he got his PhD from the Polytechnic University in Warsaw. He did judo and traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu for 2 years.
Oh, cool.
So there was a choice between Shotokan karate and Taekwondo, and we sort of liked the kicks in Taekwondo. So he put me up in Taekwondo class, and that's how it all came about. I was 9 years old. It was 1989 when I first started out, and then from then on, it was just Taekwondo. Taekwondo that was part of life. Um, and then as the 1990s began to creep up, mixed martial arts started slowly moving in, UFC, and there was this all this talk because I would read karate magazines all the time, and there was all this talk about the reality of fighting, and the ground fighting was a big craze in those days. All fights end up on the ground, that sort of garbage that they would espouse. UFC came about, so I said, well, I wanted some more stuff. I wanted to learn how to grapple. I wanted to learn how to punch. And I saw a demo on TV by a guy named Dr. Mosen. He was representing the Shidokan style. And he was demonstrating pressure points and kata bunkai like I've never seen it before.
Mhm.
A block just all of a sudden wasn't a block. It could have been a grapple. It could have been a strike. Could have been a thrust. That's something new. So I actually asked my father to meet with him, and that's how my adventure with Shidokan came about. I started doing that at the age of 16, but
Cool.
I only got certified for my black belt at the age of 33. So it took that long to for my third dan. And that was a totally different thing because before MMA, Shidokan was known as a triathlon of
Yeah.
martial arts because you had a round of Kyokushin karate, that was round one, then you had a round of Thai boxing, and then you had third round was MMA. Um, and that's how my adventure with Shootagun came about. Never did much competing because I lived in Kuwait for 14 years. That's where I met
Mm.
my instructor because my parents left in 1984 from Poland. So the market just wasn't big enough. And yeah, and that's what fascinated me was learning the real Karabunkai. And then after that, I met a guy called Russell Stutley, who's at that time known as Europe's number one Katabunkai pressure points expert. And he even furthered that knowledge that I was able to learn much more about Katabunkai than I thought I had previously known.
Mhm.
So yeah, that was sort of my introduction to mainstream martial arts. I remember seeing Russell on the cover of Martial Arts Illustrated, and then I was living in Cyprus at that time, and all of a sudden I see an advert. Russell Stutley's moved here and he's teaching. So I met him, and a long time friendship um, began with him, and he taught me how to box because he's the head of national coaches for boxing, so he can box as well. Um, and so those were my two main arts, but Shidokan Jitsu. It's an offspring from Shidokan, which Dr. Moxon created. So we focus more on the Kata Bunkai, then Shidokan more on self-defense. And I was able to utilize that in my door work because for 20 years I worked as a bouncer, just making extra money, and doing that. And then I thought, well, I love the martial arts and I love movies. I said, well, what can you do? How do you put those two together? I said, oh, I'll become a film producer. I didn't even know what a film producer does. You don't think, when you think of a movie, you think of actors and directors and writers. What the hell does a film producer do? So that's how it all came about.
Cool. So I remember, with 90s and 2000, there was a craze for K1, but
Yeah.
you could watch Shidokan competition, and then suddenly it disappeared. Is it still going? Because Kancho Yoshinji Soeno was one of the top students of Oyama, and he had a lot of traction on the beginning because I remember watching the triathlon on martial arts. It was so interesting because it was so different than everything else.
It is. I mean, well, it is and not, yeah, it's still going. They have branches all over. They have branches in Poland. I'm like, I represent a different offspring, so it's Shidokan
Hmm.
Jitsu, but Shidokan is still very much popular, but with the popularity of MMA and the money behind it and how it took the world by storm, I think it's a little harder to get people into Shidokan than it is in MMA. So, but yeah, they're still going strong. They're having competitions. They've got branches all over, and it's a great style. He created a legacy
Hmm.
with that one.
So, sorry, I can't remember the name of Shidokan Jitsu, but I've
Yeah.
seen the teacher, but I've seen that he seems to be approved by Soeno Kancho.
He was one of his students at that time. Now I don't know what happened after that. I don't really get much into politics. I just want to do martial arts.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's about it. But yeah, he was originally one of his students, and I met Concha when he was in Kuwait during my last fight. I think it was in 2000. Can't remember now, 2015 or 16. So
Mhm.
I had the honor to meet him there.
He seems to be very genuinely nice guy.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Very generous, very warm spirited. His wife's there. She's also very kind and grateful. So it was wonderful to be able to meet them, the legends.
Yeah, we're very
And he's
fortunate.
still going strong for his age, he can still
Hmm.
move.
Cool. I think that whole group of them, Ashihara, Soeno, Nakamura, and stuff, except Ashihara passed away due to the illness, but they still, Joko and Ninomiya, they still going strong, and it's nice to see that Kyokushin spread out so many different styles, kickboxing and everything.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really nice to see that we can have so many interpretations of karate, isn't it?
Well, to me, it's all, I mean, it's what you do. That's why I was happy to do this interview because it's always great to support a fellow martial artist who teaches real bunkai.
Thank you.
And despite the fact that we were showing how to do it, 25 years ago, people still, not that many people doing real bunkai even today because it's sort of, oh, well, that's not the way I do it in Shotokan, so we do it differently. Yeah, yeah, but you're doing it wrong. You're just repeating stuff like a monkey, and it makes no sense. So
Yeah, it seems to be that there are still the people who rather not see that they've been doing something for so long that it could be done better. I kind of understand that people want to preserve the tradition and how they've been taught. They're keeping it, nothing wrong with it. But, my main problem is that misinformation to the students who coming to the dojo and doesn't have an informed decision to what he's going to be training. Everybody says, "Oh, karate for self-defense, karate for this." Just say what you actually do. I'm doing sport. I'm doing
yeah.
meditation. I'm doing applications.
My teacher Russell always said, people say I've been into martial arts for 40 years. Yeah, but you've been doing grade 2 for the last 40 years. You haven't evolved. You're still doing the same thing as you were 40 years ago. Nothing's changed. You haven't adapted, you know. So that's, yeah, you could do grade two forever.
Yeah. So how did you transition into the movies? Because I hear, I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I've been hearing that you're gonna be doing a movie with Van Damme. Is that true?
I wish.
That's my legend. I wish you do.
No, no, that is not true. I said if I ever were to do a movie with Van Damme, it would be Double Impact 2. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something I would consider doing, but I don't, I've never met Van Damme. I don't know him. I don't think he knows him either. I know a lot of people who've trained with him from the martial arts, but no, no. But Double Impact 2 would be a
Awesome.
fun thing to do with Van Damme. I think that's one of the few vehicles that would work for him.
Mm. And so how did you transition? Because I was reading on your a short bio that you've been into the events side of things and then you transition into the movies.
Yeah, I worked for a UK company called Expo Media, and what they had a chain of exhibition venues all across the world. And I worked for the one in Poland because I moved back to Poland in 2000, either 2005 or 2006, I can't remember. Um, and my job was to convince big organizers of huge events to clone their stuff into Poland. So
Mhm.
that was my background. But when I lived overseas, my mother was the head of the Polish Kuwaiti Cultural Association,
Mhm.
and she would bring Polish people, Polish actors, singers, actors, actresses to do shows for the local Polish community, and the Polish community in Kuwait was very strong.
Mhm.
So that's how I got into show business. And then I was talking to Stanisław Tim, who's at that time, you know, he was a
Yeah.
very famous actor in Poland. And he was telling me about the movie business, how it works. And you write a screenplay and then you get people to invest. And I said, well, you know, I'm pretty good at raising capital. You can write. Let's do something together. And that's where the whole concept of doing movies came about. It took me another 3 years to really have the courage to do it. But I wanted to do, I saw the market in Poland, pretty much like the market in UK, that we never had any TV shows or movies about heroes that are
Yeah.
larger than life. There's always these, you know, depressing movies, and the once if we did do a movie like that, it did very well. So that's where my vision came of doing stuff about larger than life heroes. And it's not just about martial arts, because the next pictures that we're going to be doing are more into the drama genre, but it's still about strong characters. You know,
Mhm.
Scent of a Woman is about a strong character. I could do that kind of movie. And then I was speaking to one of the bosses in Netflix, and they said, "Well, give us a Van Damme movie." I said, "Okay." So that's how Bartkowiak came about, and they saw it and said, "Oh, you can do stuff like this in Poland," because they have tried. They did try to do a couple of movies in
Mhm.
Poland. That sort. They never worked. Maciej Kowalski came first. He did a movie called Underdog, but that wasn't really an action movie. It was sort of a drama which had a couple of fight scenes. It's a different kind of movie than what I did. And then Bartkowiak came out, and it sort of broke the bank. And it was like
Yeah.
people were like in shock. You can actually do that, you know.
It was quite sorry I interrupt you. It's quite funny because my friends here from boxing and stuff like that say me, "Oh, did you see that Polish movie in Netflix?" No. Well, you must watch it. I watched it. Wow, at last. Because those who don't live in Poland, I think, don't understand the mentality. We've been so pushed down and stomped over by communism that all the
Yeah.
movies are depressing. Like you said, it's just about how bad it is and comedy taking Mickey out of all times. But you kind of went in. No, we can do amazing stuff with amazing actors. So how did you found the martial art actors doing
Well,
stuff like
that
this?
was just to go into some background on that was interesting because before I even did Bartkowiak, I was talking about my vision of doing movies, and I was speaking to a famous director, and he's like listening to me, knowing what Polish cinema is like. He's like, who the fuck is gonna direct that? Who's gonna write it? No, nobody can do that in this country. So I had to get a foreign writer at that time who
Uh-huh.
was passionate about action movies. And then we had a local writer adapt it. And then finding the director, I was lucky that I got Daniel Merkovich on board, who was my business partner, because
Uh-huh.
he understood that action. He had done a movie called Diablo
Oh yeah,
before.
yeah.
So then it was a question, well, I didn't want these fight scenes to look like today's fight scenes where they were all cut up and so forth. I remember Richard Norton saying, take a look at the first Lethal Weapon. Why was it all cut up? Well, because Mel and Gibbs and Gary had no idea what they were doing. So you
Mm.
had to cut it. I wanted to do it like sort of what Scott Adkins does. Keanu Reeves does that in John
Mm.
Wick. You actually see the whole movement from A to Z, and it's
Yeah.
that actual actor doing it. Now that's very difficult for an actor. And when I told the actors that we're going to be filming this, it's called a master shot. So from A to Z, they're
Mm.
like, what do you mean it's a master shot? I'm like, yeah, it's going to be a master shot. You're going to have to do it. Owen Bach had that in
Uh-huh.
in its fight scene, so it was very good. So then, well, who's gonna be able to do that? Because I can get the stunt guys to play the bad guys, but a
Uh-huh.
real actor. And Yusuf Pavlovsky, I liked him from a movie called City 44, very famous movie. And I saw him at the premiere, at a film premiere. And I just looked at him. I said, this guy would be perfect for that role, but I wonder if he can do it physically. And I said, did you train anything? And he said, yeah, 2 years of Muay Thai. I said, you got the job. You know, that's it. And he was perfect for that role. He was like a Patrick Swayze um kind of guy. He was great, and the audience liked him because the box office numbers came in later on, despite what the reviewers said.
Yeah,
I wonder if I'll ever do a movie that'll be liked by reviewers, Polish reviewers.
I don't think, it's very odd because every time I hear great reviews for the movie and I watch it and I think that's shit. And where they could say, "Oh, it's a bad movie," I like it. Maybe I'm just the opposite to everybody else, but my wife is English. She watched it. She really enjoyed your movies, and every time we're watching, it's like if there's a really great reviews like Rebel Moon and stuff like that, and you're thinking, I'm really glad I didn't go for the cinema to see that because I would be upset that I spent money on that. You know.
Well,
And thank you for those master shots because I love to see, I'm a martial artist. I love to
yeah.
see the whole action instead of just cut ups. So thank you for that. That is great. But
That's why we do those movies for guys like you and I remember we got one review for I think it was our other movie Lesson Plan, and it was a great review because the guy said, I came home, I put the movie on, I knew how it was going to end from start to finish, but after a long day at work I took a beer and that is exactly what I needed
yep.
to unwind and relax. And that's the kind of audience that we do those movies for.
So how did you manage to get the Netflix on board? Because I don't think so. You just rock up to Netflix, say, "Hey, I've got this. Let's do it."
They actually came to me because we were going to be doing another TV show,
Okay.
and Netflix had the great vision of making sure that their movies were catered to various audiences, and
Mhm.
that includes action movies. But there isn't anybody who actually did an action movie, so it was their innovation and their vision that they said, because we were going to be doing another project, said, Mike, why don't you do a Van Damme movie for us? Because we need stuff for various audiences. So kudos to them, and I'm very grateful that they gave us a shot to showcase that we can actually do movies. That doesn't happen very often. Now we're doing
Mm.
stuff with other streamers and so forth, but at that time they were the market penetrators, and it was their vision that allowed us to do that. So we're very grateful to them.
It meant to be. When the student is
Yes.
ready, teacher arrives.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you're in the right place at the right time.
It doesn't seem to happen to me, but hey ho. At least one of us is successful.
I
Um,
think you're doing pretty well. Come on.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah, I can't complain. That would be like if I complain, it would be like I'm happy what I'm doing and how it goes. So no problems here. But we've been talking off camera a couple days ago, and I understand that the um being a producer is not an easy job, and you've got a hell of a lot of stress sometimes. So my question is, how the martial arts help you to, or does it not help you with the mental health and coping up with the stresses of your job?
Yeah, definitely. I think if it weren't for the martial arts, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing because in order for me to be successful in this industry, you have to be at least in the top 10% to make any money, and really you have to be in the top five to be able to make a living. It's like in the martial arts. I mean, you'd be crazy to go in that business to make money, and yet there are people that are actually able to live on that. But you have to be at the very top. So martial arts taught me perseverance, never give up. I think that's the key. That really, if it weren't for the martial arts, I wouldn't be able to do this industry. Because trust me, there are times, you do a movie and then nothing's coming in. Well, what do you do after that? So you need a lot of passion, a lot of freaking perseverance, and you have that in the ring. If you're fighting, you might be dead tired and you can't breathe, but you still pass on. So I credit the martial arts for any kind of success. I'd say that's one of the main reasons of doing martial arts, just to learn that perseverance, as you strive to get new belts and so forth in competition. I think that's the best thing um one can do. My son isn't in the martial, he used to do wrestling, but he's in tennis. So I put him in tennis, he plays competitively. So I made sure I wanted him to have some kind of background sports to help him later on in life. So martial arts to me is all about setting goals and then doing what you have to do to achieve them. And I apply that in business, no matter how hard it gets. And trust me, the first fucking 5 years, nothing happened. It ruined my life, and nothing was happening, and just no, 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 no. So yeah, I've been doing this 10 years now, and over 10 years. But those first 5 years, that was interesting.
I think it's for everything you try to do. It's always nice to say, "Oh, you've got easy job because you're successful," right?
Yeah.
Nobody looks how much effort you put into it, how many times you
Yeah.
cried that night because it didn't go according to plan, and it's
Yeah.
just easy to
Overnight
say,
success.
"Yeah,
You're
yeah."
so lucky. Overnight success.
Over 5 years, night success. Yeah. So can you get us through some of your failures as well? Because
Oh,
you
yeah. Where to start, man? I mean, much more failures than successes. I was gonna do a movie called Kool-Aid, which is gonna be out now. It's produced by my competitor. It was about the boxer, the
Mhm.
two-time Olympic medal boxer, usually. I was trying to do that for 5 years, and every time I took a step in the right direction, I would take two steps back. And finally, it never happened. That was like my big, big, big failure. That really screwed me up. Cost me a divorce, cost other stuff to happen. So that was it. But in the end, it was all worth it because other stuff came in that sort of gets you going. But it's the kind of industry. I remember one of the things martial arts teaches you is humility.
Mhm.
At least it should. Okay.
Yeah. There is
And I
questionable stuff about it.
remember, yeah, yeah, well, it should. That's the other thing, how many egos are in martial arts. But I try and approach every movie that I do now, and I learned that from Tom Cruise's assistant. Tom Cruise, one of the reasons why he's such a big success is he treats every single new movie that he's doing like it would be his first movie, and he's a starving actor, and that's
Mm.
going to be his big break. So I try and approach my pictures in the same way. I can only do about two pictures a year max, because I just put so much emphasis on the work. So I think you learn a lot of humility, because you do a movie and then okay, now you got to do another movie, or you got to do another TV show, or you're not working.
Mm.
So you can learn a lot of humility in the industry, pretty much like getting tapped out in the martial arts. You learn humility. But yes, there are egos in the film business as well, just like in the martial arts.
Yeah. And I suppose not everybody wants you to succeed, right? You've got people who are main agenda is to fuck you up instead of elevate you,
Pretty
right?
much. Well, I'm sure the competitors don't want you to succeed. So yeah, and I'm sure it's like that in the martial arts as well,
Yeah,
I
I think
think.
it's everywhere. Every walk in life got that sort of kind of people who it's fine when you're on the same level, but when you start growing up,
Yeah.
they try to bring you down to the level so you're not too happy.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's it's like I always, whenever my movies come out, I always love to read the hate mail, and I always pick out my favorite top 10, and I send them to the at that time it was the head of Netflix. I said, "Look at that's a pretty good one," and some of them
Mm.
were just great. I mean, it's like people should be shot for making movies like that. That was one of my favorite ones. You get a
What?
lot of hate mail as well, so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know
I love my
yeah,
trolls because they're boosting my views and stuff. So good troll is a valuable member of my team.
yeah.
What your plans for future? What kind of movies you gonna make?
Well, I'd still love to do an action movie now and again, a martial arts movie, because I want to showcase people are now talking about, well, put more MMA into your movies as opposed to traditional. I always say we can do that, but people like Stephen Thompson, Lyoto Machida, Sage Northcutt, Oliver Enkamp, they've showcased in MMA that you can mix traditional martial arts
Mm.
with MMA. And then if you do that, you actually have a superior background than your typical MMA brawlers. So I'm trying to put that in. We tried to do that with Lesson Plan, where we sort of
Mhm.
integrated traditional martial arts with so-called modern martial arts. Although if you look at the way martial arts was done hundreds of years ago, I mean that's the way it
Yeah.
was. So that's what I'm trying to do. Perhaps promoter style through the movies, and that'll be good. But then we're slowly also venturing out into more dramatic movies about larger than life personalities. I can't get into the details,
Sure.
but like I said, I would love to do like a Top Gun, let's say, or a Scent of a Woman kind of movie, or a Rocky kind of picture. So it's still it would have action, but it would have a serious drama side to it, as opposed to a straight up actioner.
Mm. And how's the work impacting your training? Are you still actively training, or you kind of had to step back because you're so busy?
Well, it's actually I'm training more now than before, and the reason for that was because I'm older. And I recently thought I had a risk of diabetes. So I go to my doctor and the results were perfect. And I said, well, how the hell is that possible? I don't really keep a diet.
Mm.
In show business, you go and get a drink. And he says, yeah, but you're training 6 days a week. I said, yeah. He said, well, that's the good news. That's why you're healthy. The problem is because you've been doing it since you were 10, you have to maintain that 6 days a week
Mm.
for the rest of your life. You can do it at lower intensity as you age, but you still have to do it at that level, because otherwise you're going to start to get sick. So I train 6 days a week. I do an hour of martial arts, and then I'll do an hour at the gym, or I'll do an hour of martial arts and an hour, 30 minutes of running. But I do that whether I want to or not, because it's a fear that motivates me, because I'm worried if I don't do it, I'm going to get sick.
Mm.
Um, so that's very important to me. So it's like brushing your teeth. You just do it.
Mm.
I do twice a week. It'll be stand up. Twice a week, it'll be ground fighting, not Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, ground fighting with the way it used to be done. And then once we it'll be wrestling or practicing kata bunkai and the joint locks. And I still do a kata. Just 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 because I do, because the stances and so forth, they're still very important to
Mm.
me. So
It's
yeah,
it's
and then I do weights, of course, 3 times a week because you have
mm.
to at that age.
Yeah, it's funny how our motivation changing. I used to love running on my competition days when I used to compete, love running, run a lot every day. Then I started hating running, didn't do anything. And now I'm thinking about my kids and I say, I don't want to be that dad on a playground. I can't do 5 minutes of running with kids. So I go back to running now and just different motivations. You have to do it. You said you just shut up, stop whinging, go and do it. It's good for you.
Yeah, my trainer said I should be running 5K every day. I'm like, so 3 days a week? And I was like, no, which part of every day didn't you understand? I'm like, fuck, I'm not gonna run 5K every single day. So yeah, yeah. Now it's important because it's I'm 45. I'm gonna be 46 in February. You gotta do it. I mean, it's getting harder to throw those high kicks.
Mm.
Much more prone to injury than I used to be, and it's your ego still. I mean, I can still do one round, a good hard round with the young guys. After that, it's like, okay, they're fresh, and I'm like, no, I had enough.
Yeah, I know the feeling. But how did you change your training methodology and stuff with incorporating age? I just recently started just for fun doing BJJ, and like you said, going with the young guys is just like, you know what? I'm just gonna be laying here, preserving my energy, so I can go a few rounds with you guys.
Yeah, it is very different because, well, it's much less intensity. So if I would do stand up, you do warm up. And then we would do technique for about 35, 40 minutes. And then at the end, we'd do 2 rounds of sparring.
Mhm.
Previously, it was the other way around. You'd spar
Yeah.
most of the time. And it's the same ground fighting. I'm not looking at it. So we just do a little bit of sparring at the end, 1 or 2 rounds, and it's mostly technique, old man training. So you do it for health reasons. There are times, if the group's not so, we'll still do an hour of sparring. I can still do that. But it's light sparring. It really is light sparring. And I understood if you go light, you can do that for till you die.
Yeah.
But you have to find somebody who knows what they're doing and they do it light. In the worst case is if you get a beginner and then they just pound at you, and yeah, that's the main difference. Same thing with weights. It's more of a total body workout and just to keep those bones and muscle going. And it's lighter. I don't kill myself anymore like I used to.
How you getting it under control? Because whoever I talk to, we all got one that 20-year-old in the head telling you, yes, you can do it. Which body goes, no, I'm not gonna do it. How do you control it? For me, it took me a long, long time to convince myself that yeah, you need to slow down. Now you're 44, injuries heal a lot much longer than before. Just shut up, don't listen to him.
I'm still learning that one. I'm still learning that one. I remember talking to, I don't know if you know this actor, Matthias Hughes. He was a big time star.
Yep, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, good friend of mine. And when he first heard how old I am, he said, that's a good age because you're still flexible, you can still do it. The problem is when you're 45 and you think you can train like you're 25. That's when the injuries start. So I'm learning about that. Yeah, I'm still at that age where your ego thinks you can still do it, and then you get hurt, and then you sort of wind down. And I'm learning humility in that respect. I haven't figured that one out yet. If I do, I'll let you know.
Speaking of Matthias, I think everybody knows Matthias, but they are not aware that they know him because he was the villain in all the most famous
Yeah,
movies in 90s in the B movies, right? And he's a
yeah,
huge
yeah.
guy with a long blonde hair. You know,
He
how did
is
you
the
met him?
nicest guy in the world. He is the nicest ever guy in the world. We might do something together. He was recently in Poland because he was in this movie called The Last Comedian, and that's
Mm,
when we talked. But I've known Matthias for a while now. And I think I met him through mutual friends from the martial arts because when I lived in the States,
mhm,
I knew all these guys. So that's how we met. But he is, I remember, when I saw him on screen, he was this big, scary guy. I was in my teens. I was afraid of him. And then first time I met him, I said, "You're the nicest guy in the world." And he goes,
mm.
"Oh, good acting." And he's in great shape. I think he's 66 or 65.
Mhm.
He really is in phenomenal shape for that age. So,
I've seen.
and
I was.
he's,
I actually was looking at his stuff a couple of months ago, and I've seen the recent interview with him, and he was really, really, yeah, like you said, in a good shape and really nice guy.
yeah, just it'd be a ball to work with him. Maybe we'll see.
So, what would be your best choice? Not the best choice. How to say it? What would be your dream movie cast? That's what I wanted to say, but it's
Oh
last I think.
gosh. Oh gosh, that's a hard one. You know what? I think Stallone's idea for the Expendables, I think that was just such a terrific idea.
Yep, I
Maybe
agree.
I'll have the genius one day to think of something because they have talked about doing an Expendables for B cast movies. Getting Don Wilson, Richard Norton, getting all the Michael Dudikoff, getting all those guys together.
Hmm.
I don't know how financially that would work. So they have talked about that, but I think he was a genius when he thought of that movie.
Yeah,
That was just, I mean, yeah, that was terrific.
I think what they done very correctly it was to not make a serious movie,
Yeah,
just have fun with it. Instead
yeah,
of having a serious 60-year-old guys beating stuff,
yeah.
just let have fun with it, bring everybody together, make some money, done. And it was success.
Yeah,
I loved
and
it.
the problem with movies today, and that's the problem because some of them, Stallone made it fun in a good way.
Mm,
So you didn't treat it seriously, but he wasn't making fun of the genre. And then you see movies today that try and reboot this old stuff, like The Fall Guy, and sort of they're making fun of that genre. They don't understand these directors.
mm,
Back in the 80s, yeah, it was fun, but you tr treated it seriously in a way. Now that because they don't understand it, they're making fun of that genre. That's why these movies don't do well.
mm,
These reboots. So, Bad Boys is a good example how you can make fun, but you're not making fun.
mm.
And it's hard to do. It's that little delicate difference that makes all the difference,
Yeah,
if you don't right.
I just watched the Axel F and I
Yeah.
thoroughly enjoyed it. It's like still being in 80s, 90s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really good fun. So I think a lot of people missing that kind of filming.
Yeah,
Um,
that was the whole genesis behind going into Lesson Plan and Bartkowiak.
mm,
We wanted to take the action martial arts movies from the 80s, 90s and adapt them to today's setting. That's another thing that people, when they try and do that, they just copy paste your 80s movies onto today.
mm,
No, times have changed. It's very different now. So you do have to adapt it to the modern audience. One of the things they asked me, would you do a blood sport or a kickboxer or a shoot fighter movie like they had with Bolo
mhm,
Young? I said, well, no, not really, because today you have MMA, you have UFC, that sort of stuff is happening in real life. The
mm,
whole idea behind those movies is you came from a traditional background and now you have to go into a cage and fight without rules. That was interesting for movie making. Today, yeah, it's just another fight. So it doesn't have that
mm,
originality that those movies like Best of the Best 2 had. There are
mm.
no rules. So that's how martial arts has changed. That's why the movies have changed.
Interesting. You said that you wanted to do a movie about the Kool-Aid. Um, are you looking into do some kind of biographical movie about the Polish? Because we had a lots of good sports people who've been kind of not allowed to be famous because of the communism. You had the Auschwitz
Yeah,
movie,
yeah,
which is great movie as well.
yeah.
Are you into doing something like that?
Very much so. I mean, that was the whole reason behind me wanting to do the Kool-Aid movie
Hmm.
in the beginning. So yes, that's the kind those are the kind of pictures I would love to do. I know that there's Maciej Kowalski's just having a boxer movie come out on Netflix pretty soon. I'm looking forward to doing that. Even though it's my competition, I'm still looking forward to watching the movie. But yes, those are the kind of movies that I would like to do. Inspirational sports heroes, hopefully within boxing or MMA that do well. And that's the kind of genre that we would be looking at expanding from going from straight action to drama action. You know, Southpaw with Jake Gyllenhaal
Mm.
is a great movie.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd love to do something like that. Top Gun is a great movie. I would let we have plans on doing something similar, maybe in Poland regarding the special forces. So
Mm.
yeah, various ideas, but definitely inspirational stories of larger than life characters achieving success in Poland,
Mm.
which is not you don't see that much often.
Yeah. So how did the kind of the cinematography changed in Poland now? Is it much easier to do the movies, or is it still very difficult and we're still trying to catch up to the West? Or
That's a good question. I think there are more opportunities with all the streamers that have come in.
mm,
You know, so I think there's that. But there's just, you know, there are 300 production companies in Poland, so there's a lot of competition. And there are much more that do audio-visual stuff and
mhm,
so forth. So it is a very competitive market. You have to be the best of the best if you're going to make money in it. Um, so yeah, I would say that. But if you're good, yeah, you can make a big difference in Poland. Um, there was this movie about Religa, you know, the heart surgeon.
mhm. Yeah.
That did very well because that was an Americanized movie adapted for Polish audiences. That's why it did so well, and it was about success. So that's the kind of stuff that I want to be doing.
Which of your movies is your favorite one?
Of my movies,
Yeah, yeah.
oh God, oh, it'd be a close one between. Oh gosh, I don't know.
So which one you had the most fun making? Put it that way, so
Lesson
you don't have
plan.
to choose.
Lesson plan was great because it had the old actors, but we had a bunch of young upcoming actors, and the atmosphere there when you got kids is just it was terrific. We had a blast doing that. Although it was during COVID, so it was stressful times. Piotr got his shoulder injured because I brought one of my guys from the door to do a fight scene with him, and it just so happened he was Poland's national strongman champion. And he fell on Piotr, and he's about 180 kilos or whatever the hell he was. Dislocated his shoulder. So Piotr had to
Ouch.
film his fight scenes with a dislocated shoulder. That was interesting. So that was a lot of fun. But Bartkowiak had a great story. So yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd say one of those two, and both did similarly well at the box office.
Mm. Mike, thank you very much for your time. If you guys didn't seen Bartkowiak or Lesson Plan or other movies from Mike, go and watch it. It's on Netflix. You have to look for it. I know the Bartkowiak puts you off because it's a Polish surname, and British people go like, "What?" But it's well worth it. Um, and I hope to see you soon on the podcast as well if you create more movies, and we're gonna talk about it and have fun. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.